Yep, and we are live. That's all good and well. So let's see how many people are here. And
none.
To mine, there's only me.
No, I'm here.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's not fair. Okay, now it says 2. Okay, now it shows you.
Well, it has to echo over servers and things.
Oh, I had it open for half an hour.
No, but I've only just opened.
So it would seem that our streams, though fun they are, may not be as...
Well, it's Saturday night, and...
That's true, that is true.
Well, it's Saturday. I won't say night, because...
yeah, it depends on where you are.
And for one person who drops by, it's Sunday morning.
Sunday morning?
Yeah, in Australia, Sunday morning.
All right. Are they that far ahead?
Mm-hmm. Wow. That's why Sydney always has the first firework display of New Year's Eve, because they get to be the first. They're in the first time zone.
I have to admit, I don't really pay attention to all that. But yeah, now that you mention it, yeah.
You see, where I live, I know we're an hour fast at this time of year, but this is the middle, which means half the world is ahead of us and half the world is behind us.
Ah, well. Oh, by the way, so the whole hangout on air thing, because we talked about this earlier, and I'm curious because I again get the message. This hangout on air is live. Hangouts on air will be ended on the 1st of August. Use YouTube webcam to stream.
Okay, I did a search and
yeah, go on.
No, I did a search and I couldn't find anything that mentioned August. I found things that mentioned September, 15th of September, and it talked about the end of Google Plus.
Okay, so this is something else then.
Well, and the problem is I've never seen it because it's not out there. And when I did an internet search, I hit literally nothing.
Let me share it with you. That doesn't do it.
Yo, it's no good. That's in funny language.
Oh right, yeah, you don't understand Dutch.
Well, we don't call it double Dutch for nothing.
Double Dutch is something else.
No, it's not. It's Dutch twice over.
Which is something else than Dutch.
No.
Yeah, it is.
No.
Yeah, it is though. So an apple is the same as a double apple.
It means you got 2 of them.
Which is not the same.
Of course it is. Of course it is. It's the same entity, just more of them. Oh, I've got a pint of water. I've got a gallon of water. Well, then they're not both water. Of course, they're both water.
Well, oh, sorry, I'm yawning a little bit. Still a bit tired. One moment, by the way. I'm going to.
I don't think it really matters. No one's here. We are speaking to the void.
Sorry, my wife was sitting in the background talking, and
I know.
Yeah, but she also knows it's that we go live around this time, and
I know it's okay. Don't worry. I was just saying it doesn't really matter. We're talking to the void, as there is literally no one watching.
That is true. That is true. That's not. Anywho, so yeah, is it useful to start the topic then?
No, definitely not.
Definitely not. I wonder if anyone would show up still.
Maybe sometimes. I mean, if they're relying on YouTube notifications, then the chances are that that's not necessarily. I got a notification.
Really? Oh, well, that's good. But yeah, notification system is pretty fucked up, even for the things that you are subscribed to. But even in your subscription feed, you don't often see it.
Yeah. It's
No, I noticed that I had something recommended in my sidebar thingy.
mhm,
Was the new video of someone, and then I started looking something else, and I thought to myself, you know what, I want to watch that video too. So I went to my subscription feed, and it wasn't there.
mhm.
I had to go find an old video of this person so that I could then go to the channel of that person, so I could then view the video that they suggested to me earlier, but that I didn't find in its subscription feed.
Well, if you subscribe, why did you have to find an old video? You could have just brought them up in your subscriptions.
Yeah, but I have a lot of subscriptions, so finding
Yeah, well, fortunately, they're in alphabetical order.
yeah, but it's still a lot.
Okay.
I mean, a lot, and I have lots of channels that are.
While we're waiting,
Mhm.
I don't know what Jimmy Stifffinger's
Hey, Jimmy.
situation is, but last in the stream the other night, Alison Tiemann put a request out for someone in the Netherlands to host a public screening is not the right word. Host with the International Conference for Men's Issues, you can buy internet tickets which get the stream live, and she was suggesting someone host it so that it's a public event, so more people come along, or you know, an open event, not a public, not an open, but a non-private event, so that it's like, you know, you are aware.
Okay, because Jimmy goes to that channel often as well, then.
Well, I've seen him there of late, but
Okay.
I didn't know if he'd seen that particular stream, and so I just thought I'd mention it in case he didn't know about Alison asking for someone. And she was very particular in singling out the Netherlands, which was quite interesting.
Okay. Well, can you send me the link? Then I'll look into it.
Well, it's not a link.
Well, I mean, he met Alison and Karen apparently, so otherwise I would say, you know what, I'll check into it. See why.
Well, basically what it is you can buy these, as I say, streaming tickets for the ICMI, so you get to watch the whole thing live. And if you've got one, you can also interact in the Q&As.
Mm-hmm.
But it seems, because they're not cheap, but it seems that you can then use them for a group showing. But yeah, so you'd need the right equipment, because you wouldn't really just want a regular computer monitor. So you'd want some sort of larger display, and it all sounds an awful lot of work for people who aren't used to such organising.
Mm-hmm.
I've only met Mike, Mr. Stevenson.
I've met none of them, though we had one in the stream. Which was that?
Hannah.
Right? Oh, Hannah.
Hannah. Yeah, that's the trouble, Jimmy. And it's a bit late to be thinking about it.
So, and how much do they want? How much do they ask for it?
I didn't really look. I don't know whether it's $380 for the whole event or per day.
Oh, cool. Yeah,
they had a meetup last year, and I was kind of humming and ahhing whether to go, but I just didn't have the energy, and it meant leaving the house, so I didn't.
Well, I can understand you won't come to Amsterdam.
No, in London.
In all fairness, I live in the Netherlands, and I still wouldn't go to Amsterdam. I don't like that city. It's too much of a mess.
With all them pretty canals.
Yeah, even with all them pretty canals.
Yeah, well, that's globalization for you. Reduce all the historic cities into war zones.
Yeah, that's true. Well, one sec, I'll be right back.
Howdy hum. Do they? Free sex? Bad joke on that. All tourists suck. That's in the nature of being a tourist. You live there for a while. Yes, all tourists suck. I live close enough to London to pop up when I have to, and far enough away for it not to be London. Oh dear, sorry. I don't know if the low bar, as they call it. You've been to London? My commiserations. Shitty city, to be honest. You should have seen the stream we did a few weeks ago when we talked about building a wall around London and keeping everyone inside. It wasn't a very serious stream, but we had a lot of fun devising ways to neutralize the threat posed by the metropolitan elite. You were there, what, during our stream? About, I mentioned a minefield. Sorry. It all blurs for me. It's a shame you can't cut cities out and then tow them into the middle of the Atlantic, and then we could put all the shitty cities of the world together in the middle of the Atlantic, moored to each other, and say, right, you love each other so much, off you go and live together, and the rest of us will just get on with our lives. And nuclear waste, don't forget the nuclear waste inside the wall so that they daren't tunnel out. Oh dear, I don't know what's wrong with Modwayne.
Yeah, I'm sorry, guys.
Oh, you are back.
I'm here. I never left the computer. I merely turned off the microphone because we have some waves within the familiar ties.
What?
Sorry. Yeah, and it's a lot of story, and basically boils down to stuff being really annoying, but that's not something to share.
I didn't understand a single word of that. Something about waves.
Yeah.
You live by the sea?
Yeah, something like that. No, it's familiar waves.
No. The nuclear waste stays in the wall. It's just to stop them burrowing out.
Oh, you were talking about the London Wall again.
Yeah. Well. Jimmy was saying he's lived in Amsterdam a while, and then he said he'd been to London, and that he actually prefers Amsterdam, having damned Amsterdam as a terrible place.
I agree. I've been to London and I have been to Amsterdam, but there's an old punk song. I can't remember the name, but basically it boils down to this: stay clear of capital cities.
Okay.
Or don't live in capital, which is funny enough true. more so in the
With
West world.
sharks, alligators.
With sharks with lasers on their head, freaking lasers.
Lasers?
It's a reference to gold member.
Oh, okay.
I can't remember. One of
Another film I haven't seen.
Yeah, one of the Austin Power films.
Yeah, I recognise that from the title.
Freaking lasers, that's the one. So, I didn't know you lived in Amsterdam, though, Jimmy. Not a lot of Dutch people have. I don't know. I don't like big cities. I never.
No, me neither. I'll be right back. I haven't got anything to drink.
That's all right, mate. That's all right. Well, I've been looking for a house in different locations than I am now, and it's funny, but living close to Amsterdam is cheaper than living in the city I live in. No thanks. But I lived on someone's couch for a while. Well, yeah. Living on a couch works too, I guess. Was it a him someone or a her someone? I guess most people live on couches on him someone's. Which is, well, I guess if you live on a couch, you don't complain.
At this rate, if it's only Jimmy in the audience, he might as well come on the stream and we just have a natter.
Well, Jimmy, you want to join?
I mean, if it's we three, rather than him have to type.
That's true. Jimmy, if you want. It was a nice couch. What? But it's only a small couch, though, isn't it? I mean,
well, you don't know. You can get some very big bed settees.
yeah,
We don't tend to call them couches. We call them settees.
Oh, right.
Couch, I think, is the Amerikansky term for it. Sofa, and we call them sofas and we call them settees, but we don't call them couches.
Well, anyway, sure, he'll come on. Do I have you on Twitter? Do I have you on? Let me see what I have. Do I have you on anything? Jimmy, where do I know you on other platforms? That's not it. I don't seem to have you on Discord. Do I have you on the Twitter? Or do I have you on a different name? That's also possible.
This is why I only use the one.
Yeah.
Because it's not about other people getting confused. It's I'd get confused.
True that.
I only use Discord.
Yeah, but I don't think. Do I have you on Discord? Are you on my server as well? Because I don't know. I can't find you.
Hang on. I've brought him up. I found him.
Well, in that case, send him the invite.
That's what I'm doing. Goodness gracious me.
Some people are so slow.
No, some people need to fill in the dots.
As in ... You're so slow?
No, as in I was already doing it. Didn't think it was necessary, having said found him on Discord, to fill in the dots of, so I will send him the link.
Okay, let me...
He's responded to me on Discord, so presumably he means he's got the message.
And I'm going to send the link.
And there he is. Hello.
I can't hear anyone. Hi there, Jimmy. I can see an image, but I can't hear a voice. Oh, and I linked the Discord in the chat.
Do you have to do him an invite?
He wasn't on my Discord server, he said. So
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Don't you have to do him an invite?
I think this is a general invite that works for everyone. I don't know.
Because I found them time out in the past.
Yeah, well, if you don't, I mean, they stay active for a day.
So you've just set that one up, is what you're saying?
Yeah. Well,
No sound. No, that's true. No sound.
don't you have a microphone, mate?
Sorry. And I'm the boomer.
Well, otherwise, what we could also sub my muted N-words. Muted N-word.
N-word.
N-word. Well, nice people, nice guy, right?
Yeah. Well, I was thinking knowledgeable begins with a K.
That begins with a K. No, nice, no, nice, no, nice. Hi there, Davey. We more or less decided not to do the serious talk about what we wanted to do because no one showed up. So we invited Jimmy to join us from the stream into the Hangout.
Which he did.
Which he did, but now he
without.
can't.
Well, it's a good guess. Can I say that? I like people who are quiet. I know this might sound a little bit ironic on my part.
Right. Well, Jimmy is going to try and fix his sound thingy. Davey, if you want to join us as well, mate.
Yeah, we would just. Well, I mean, the idea of the stream was nothing novel. It was just to talk about how the end of the world is coming now that authoritarianism has taken full hold in the United Kingdom following the show trial of Tommy Robinson. Unfortunately, Modway decided not to use my beautifully phrased description, show trial and etc., and mealy-mouthed it to judicial overreach.
Which is perfectly fine. It's a nice way of putting it.
No, it's not. The jackboots are coming and you're calling it judicial overreach.
Yeah. It fits.
It fits.
I mean, the jackboots are coming is, in all fairness, a little bit of
hyperbole?
Probably.
This is a Saturday stream.
That is true.
Saturday stream. Hyperbole is what we're all about.
that is somewhat true. So, but yeah, no, I mean, it is fair that, and I've followed the story about what happened in the UK. Okay, Jimmy's going to reboot his PC.
Yeah. So let's put it this way: hands up, metaphorically. Who was in any way surprised by the verdict?
In all fairness, I was.
Okay.
No, I mean it. I seriously was, because I mean they charged him and convicted him in such a short time frame.
Well, illegally.
Yeah. But then the second judge that looked at the case and dismissed it basically told that Tommy Robinson could go back free because it was bollocks. He didn't use those words, but it basically said that. I really didn't think they would go for a second try, and for the they didn't. I found the timing that they went for a second try basically at the same time as Tommy said, you know what, I'll run for the European Parliament, because that's when they said, oh, you know what, we still have something on you.
Of course.
Which makes it, I mean, you can't have better proof of it being political than that.
It's been political from the start.
Yeah, well, it was arguable from the start.
No, seriously wasn't. Seriously wasn't. You see, again, one of the misconceptions one gets is Even amongst the establishment isn't a monolith. They're not. They don't have a hive mind. There are different elements, and they might not all be in agreement.
Mm-hmm.
This is why they have clubs and talk behind closed doors and haggle and negotiate with each other, threaten and cajole.
Well, that's one of the things I always had a problem with, because I've considered in the past to join a. Welcome back, Jimmy. By the way, I think he's back.
Is he?
I thought so, because I saw him type again, but maybe that's an old message. He's not in the Hangout. I was going to say something and I distracted myself. I've seriously considered going into politics. I still sometimes seriously consider it, but I haven't made any steps into it. But the one thing I never understood is that there are politicians that feel the need to negotiate things in closed quarters or behind closed doors because the public shouldn't be aware of what they are talking about. And I'm like, to me, that's the worst thing you can do.
Which is why you should never go into politics.
Well, probably. I'm not in it to be politically correct or anything like that.
No.
If I discuss something or if I want something done and people don't like what I'm saying, then yeah, okay, sure, they can bring up their points as well. Now,
yeah,
sorry. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, carry on.
You can't negotiate with everyone at the table. But at the same time, I don't mind negotiating and that everyone might know what's going on, but they are not all in it. So, yeah, there is that. But to do stuff behind the, how do you call it? Behind a shelter, behind a wall, so to speak, so that people don't know what's going on. Oh, well, they may be able to. We can't hear you, mate. Oh, itching eye. Yeah. No, but to negotiate behind closed doors, where the public isn't allowed to know what's being said. I don't know. It seems bad.
Yeah, except again, it's always been done behind closed doors. The pretense has always been to do it in public.
Yeah, I know, and I don't understand why.
Because the delusion is that they have our interests in mind, let alone at heart.
Yeah, but I mean, someone explained it to me once that they did this because if they would do it in public, people would know what their stances are or how they felt about it. And I'm like, how is that a bad thing?
No, you're missing the point. It's like, was it Clinton at the last election, right? And she gave that speech to the bankers.
Yeah.
And basically, there was the thing she told the bankers, and there was the thing she tells the public.
But that seems to be the problem to me.
And that is politics, period.
Well, I don't think that's what politics is. That's what politics become.
No, well, it's got a longer history than it's been like that for the longest time.
Yeah. See, I don't mind speaking to people open and publicly and blah blah blah. And yeah, okay, there are things that people may disagree with me about, and there are things that they agree with, which both is.
Yeah, but you see, you're missing the point. It's not what you want. They don't want to talk to you, and they certainly don't want to be open and honest about it.
Yeah, that
I mean, the classic example, right? So, Jess Phillips, you know.
Yeah.
So she did a book, and she's put in her book what they actually do. But even though it's in her book, she will barefacedly lie and say something completely different in front of the cameras.
And that's something I never understood. And that probably why I will be a bad politician. I don't know.
Because here's the point. They have, I won't call it rules, but there's a way it all seems to work.
Oh, 1 second. Jimmy, which browser are you using? Because Hangouts is very browser specific.
Yeah, you have to use Chrome. And hi, Ludicrous.
Hi there, Ludicrous. But okay, continue, John. Or did
Brave? No, you can't use Brave. I tried myself, Jimmy. Even though it's based on Chrome, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
I have to use Chrome specifically for the Hangouts.
Yeah.
What was I saying about? So yes, so there's a way it all works, and if you're in politics long enough and you get to understand, for the most part, because every now and again you'll get a politician really cooking up right because they miscalculate. But for the most part, there's a way it works. One of the way it works is this: if you're someone like Jess Phillips, you are more than able to write whatever you want in your book, because you know the public's not going to read it,
and the media isn't going to call you out,
and the media's not going to call it out, or anyone who's on your side, which means that the only people who are going to call you out on it are people like Sargon, who you've already been able to discredit.
Yeah.
Yes, I know it is Jimmy, but it doesn't work.
Maybe that's why we need a clean slate of politicians.
Yeah, well, and the political system and much of the law. Because this whole judicial argument is, the fundamental problem is this: the law is now so complex, there's so many laws. Who can interpret it all? That's what judges do. They look down, they say, well, I've got this law which says this thing and that law which says that thing, and I'm going to decide it means X. And that X, as we saw with Countdown Killer, can be black is white, up is down. You explicitly said this, but I don't care. I'm going to say you meant the opposite.
Yeah, now that's the problem with, well, especially in the UK at the moment. But I do think this will be true in other countries in Europe.
And this was the subject about authoritarianism, because it's about the problem with the rule of law is this. Well, you've got several. Okay, first one is this: if the law becomes too complicated, that the public basically is at the mercy of the experts, then the experts can come to these judgments, and the public cannot, in an informed manner, go, hang on, that's not right.
Yeah, that's it's based on a song from Tom Waits.
I don't think it's based on a song by somewhere.
No. I mean, you're right. Tom Waits made a song about it. God's away on business, and who are the ones that we left in charge?
Yeah, and blah, my worry is that they are now deliberately exploiting that.
Yeah, no, definitely, yeah.
You know, I mean, a couple of elections ago, I read an article in the Daily Telegraph, which is generally considered the most right-wing of the British papers. It was saying how the tax law is hideously complicated. It doesn't need to be complicated. You could make it much simpler, which would close all these loopholes.
Yeah, but the question is,
who benefits from the loopholes? The party donors, the movers and shakers. The last thing they want is a simple, transparent tax system, because then they can't get out of paying their taxes so easily.
Yeah.
And this is the fun, and it's the same with the law. They could tighten up the law, but then they wouldn't have all these ways of just nailing people on bullshit charges, because that's what the current law does. And so that's the first problem. Okay, so the first problem is the complexity of the law and the fact that everyone's at the mercy of judges and interpretation. The second problem is the law works when it is seen to be applied evenly.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'll give you an example of that. Right. So on British motorways, there's a speed limit. And it is a well-recognised fact that the police will turn a blind eye in many situations to people going 80 instead of 70. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's not true that they will always on every motorway, but you know that people who will use a stretch of motorway will tend to learn which ones when it's okay. And as long as that's applied evenly to all drivers on the motorway, that's fair, if you know what I mean. But if they suddenly went along picking on red cars and said, right, everyone can do it, but we're going to charge red cars for speeding, that would be capricious, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Right. And that's the problem. If the law is applied in a capricious way, that's when people start to lose trust in it, because you don't know whether you're going to be considered the red car. And this is what's happening here with Dankula and Robinson and whatever. They're being capricious about it. They are clearly going after targets, not after the law.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. And at the same time, that's the problem.
Yeah, and that's what I was saying. So you've got those two, and the third problem is adding in all these authoritarian laws that don't have objective standards.
Mm-hmm.
You don't sound like you're listening, mate. It's all right.
No, I am listening. I'm sorry. They don't have, but that the whole standard thing, and this is what I said earlier. We need to return to rule of law. I didn't say it earlier today, but we mentioned that, and then you said, well, the return of the rule of law sounds all good and well, but we already have the rule of law never was equal.
No, I mean, it never has been equal. I mean, everyone knows if you're rich and can have influence or can afford a good lawyer, you don't get treated the same.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, and, you know, that's just, but the point is it's when the police at a fundamental level will treat the same action differently according to who's doing it.
Yeah.
That's when you have a problem, and that is what's happening. And
Yeah.
it's being, I mean, the reason I wasn't surprised by the verdict is simple. It was quite clear that it was a severe embarrassment to the agenda of, I don't know whether it's a government, but an element of that law and order aspect of society when Tommy Robinson got let out of prison, because the law actually said no, he was wrongfully imprisoned. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And the establishment in this country has never taken a bloody nose well. They are bad losers.
Yeah.
And
but
so
this is true, though, because, I mean, the judge did say the conviction, the first conviction, was unjustified and indeed unjudicial. But then they sentenced him basically on the same facts that were considered unjudicial earlier.
yeah, because they've spent the whole intervening period working out how to ensure that they'll get the right result. which is why it was a show trial, which is why I called it a show trial, because they framed it to get the result they wanted. And they would have left it as long as they had to before starting, because they wanted to frame it the way that would get the result they wanted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, it was a political prosecution. There's
but that was very clear. That's what I said earlier. It was amazing that, I mean, he got let off by a judge, and then you didn't hear anything from it for a while, and then he mentioned that he would run for the European Parliament, and all of a sudden,
just as all of a sudden the police opened investigations into Carl Swindon.
Yeah.
When he announced he was going to run for office.
And the funny thing is, I mean, everything he said is so public. Everyone can see it, but they are simply smearing it. I mean, this is the Count Dankula thing all over again, though. In the Count Dankula thing, they went one further. They merely said, oh, well, yeah, you didn't say this, but we infer that this is what you meant.
Well, no, worse. He said explicitly, this is a joke. I'm doing it because of my girlfriend's obsession with her dog.
True that.
I'm making the dog the worst thing I can think of. And they took that as, oh, and therefore you're saying this is pro-Nazi. We don't believe.
Yeah. And we're going to see the same thing happening with Carl. I'm pretty sure of it. Well, probably not as far, because there's not that much to gain. Then again, I think if we
he doesn't have political ambitions. He made it quite clear he doesn't have political ambitions. Mm-hmm. He was not just he, but the whole of UKIP was roundly thrashed in the elections.
Yeah.
So if he just sticks to being on YouTube, they're going to just forget him. Forget he ever existed.
Yeah, probably. But at the same time, this is somewhat endemic to what the problem is. Because, yeah, you're not allowed to go against the grain.
Contempt of court is not a criminal act. No, being Tommy Robinson is the criminal act.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny that he's being convicted. Sorry, he's been convicted. He's being indicted, or he has been convicted. But the indictment was that he asked questions to people going into court. And as he goes into court, the BBC and all the other mainstream medias are out there doing far worse than what he did. And he's going to jail for it. That's beyond... Well, whether it's an opinion or not is not really the interesting part. The interesting part is that you are not allowed to have an opinion they don't want you to have.
Mm. Especially if you're a dirty working class upstart who has no business in interfering in things he knows nothing about. Or has no business interfering in.
Yeah, has no business interfering in, and has no business in knowing what it's about. His betters should tell him. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Hello, Jimmy, again. Have you made it this time?
We're live.
Yay! He speaks.
This time we can hear him.
Isn't that some sort of film title or something? He speaks.
Yeah. It has a voice.
Cool.
I wouldn't know that one, to be honest, but welcome.
Hello.
It just sounds like it. I'm sorry. I'm a boomer. Come on, give me a break.
Well, I'm kind of a boomer too. I have no idea how all of this works. You probably have more knowledge about all of this, so.
Yeah, I spend most of my time going, what are you talking about? It's a film. No, never heard of it.
Well, I don't know this film, It Speaks.
Oh, no.
He
speaks. I speak. Never mind. But about Tommy Robinson, the guys were already convicted, right? They were they were going to the court for
Sentencing.
sentencing.
Yeah. So he couldn't have any influence on it.
Yeah, so they were already like convicted. They were what?
And nothing he mentioned in his reporting wasn't brought out there by other mainstream medias as well. So that's the worst part. I mean, he didn't even bring anything new to the table.
Mm-hmm.
No, it was. Oh, look. Well, no. Technically, it is a judge totally went mental and did things that were criminal. The judge should be in prison, okay, because his trial and conviction was unlawful, okay, and if sending someone to prison for 2 months illegally isn't a crime, I mean, fuck knows what is. But as I said, it was embarrassing to those who got it in for Tommy, and so they had to justify it by whatever means, you know.
And indeed, I mean, the whole mortgage fraud charge was a stitch up too. I mean, yeah, but he convicted. He what was it? He consented. No, not consented.
Pleaded guilty.
Pleaded guilty. Yeah, that's the one. He pleaded guilty.
Because lawyers lie and they say, "Oh, just plead guilty," and they let you off lightly, and then they throw the book at you, and then it's too late.
In all fairness, yes, he has a conviction for violence
Against a Nazi.
Yeah, he beat up a neo-Nazi.
Yeah.
And they always mentioned that he had a conviction for violence, but they never mentioned why. It's how the narrative is being spun around us.
Well, as I say, it's the same as the Jeff Phillip book. They know that enough people will just have to take their word for it.
Yeah.
But even if he did something wrong, he has already been punished enough.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, how he came out of prison, he looked like a walking corpse.
Yeah.
Like a dead man. His eyes were all sunken, and he
But
has been punished enough, if he even deserved punishment
he was
at all.
sent to too high category of prison for the offence of contempt of court.
Yeah. And I'm curious, in all fairness, I'm curious what will happen if something happens to Tommy Robinson. Because I really do think that they're playing with fire. And I've been told, but I'm not sure if this is true, but I've been told that there have been lots of demonstrations in the last few days in London.
Today, they've been blocking the streets.
I don't think it will stay. That it will be demonstrate. That I think it will end up in riots if it will go through.
Yeah.
Well, no, I mean the sensible thing, if they had any sense, which they clearly don't, the sensible thing would have been just to find him guilty, which was what they determined, and then say you're released on time served.
Yeah. Which would make sense, which is also wrong. In all fairness, the only reason why they would do that is to basically say, yeah, we messed up, but we didn't mess up. But it would be a better idea than basically doubling down, which is what they're doing now.
Yeah, because this is the whole point. They have so much leeway in sentencing. And the problem the first time is they did this insane ramping up of the sentence because he was on 3 months probation, and then they added another year.
A year for contempt of court.
And
for filming a convicted criminal.
Well, a few.
For streaming. His offence literally was for streaming.
Yeah. And the only negative things being said there were not said by him. I mean, he was rather clean in his words. breach of peace, then contempt of court, and now it's suddenly mobbing up people.
Yeah, well, that isn't that the Dankula? Isn't that exactly the same charge as Dankula? A bullshit charge of riling people up without any evidence whatsoever.
Yeah.
Yep.
And this is why, you know, I called it, you know, the march of authoritarianism, because these are the kind of fake bullshit charges you get in show trials.
Yeah. Yeah, this is very much Banana Republic style of law. And I'm really not looking forward to the coming month.
Nope.
Because this I don't see this ending well. Let me put it like this.
This will end up in tears.
Well,
This will all end in
essentially,
tears.
you've got a class warfare in the UK, because this isn't alone. This also ties in exactly with Brexit, and because it's pretty much the same people on both sides. You've got your metropolitan elite who will literally surrender the country to appease the vile elements, the vile elements amongst the Muslims. Because I'm not saying the Muslim, but amongst the Muslims are vile elements, and they would seem to be hell bent on appeasing them no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like sand.
Well, no, me neither. No, I listened to the Spiked podcast yesterday, day before, because Labour have now officially adopted the Remain position as a party. And this is in explicit reneging of their 2017 election manifesto.
Mm-hmm.
So they are explicitly saying, yeah, we told you, you vote for us and we will 100% go for Brexit, but you know what, we don't want to. And there's an awful lot of Labour constituencies that are heavily Brexit. And so the Labour Party, allegedly, though goodness knows when it was the party of the working class, has now declared itself firmly against the working class and for the urban elite.
Yeah. They're literally selling people's children. Literally.
Yeah.
And they can sleep at night.
Mm.
They're traitors.
Yeah.
They're literally traitors. And you know what we did with traitors back in the day?
Well, yeah. Unfortunately,
I'm not going to mention it.
And no, unfortunately, the people who do things to traitors are the people who are the traitors, which kind of makes it a bit more difficult.
Yeah. And the worst part is, I'm not in favor of ethno-nationalism and all that, but stuff like this will grow the ethno-nationalist sentiments.
Oh yeah,
No,
it's inevitable.
But that's the thing, because the coalition against them is not on ethno lines.
No, it's not.
And so it won't grow ethno-nationalism.
No, I fear it does. I mean,
no, it grows nationalism, but not ethno-nationalism.
No, I agree with you, John, and I wish it were true, but I really don't see that happening, because yes, there are groups. Look at there are plenty of black people that support Tommy Robinson. This is a great thing. Tommy Robinson mentioned this quite often when people were demonstrating. The people who were demonstrating against Tommy Robinson were nearly all white, when he's standing there with black and white people combined.
Yeah, and then they call him the racist.
Yes, but I'm not talking about what's happening just in England. I'm not talking about just the UK. I mean, this is happening all over Europe. This is happening in America too.
Yeah.
And we're being pushed into accepting that diversity is such a great thing, and we're not being explained why diversity is a great thing. And everyone who speaks out against anything that could be connected with diversity needs to be attacked. And that will breed ethno-nationalists. This is what we're seeing with Identity Europa. This is what we see with the Norse movements in Norway and in all fairness in Sweden. They don't trust anyone other than themselves, which is a bad thing. Don't get me wrong. I'm not in favor of this, because there are plenty of people of color that I would consider standing besides, where there are plenty of people of the same ethnicity as mine that I would consider throwing into the sea.
Yeah, but that's the fundamental problem, because the enemies are more homogeneously ethnically similar than the people on the same side. And this is what I'm trying to say. It's like ethno-nationalism doesn't actually work on any level, because
it doesn't. I'm not advocating.
No, I'm just saying that in the arithmetic, it doesn't work in the arithmetic. As you said, if you look at Tommy Robinson against Antifa, it's Antifa who are almost overwhelmingly white.
But the problem isn't so much what reality shows us, it's the narrative that's being driven. And a lot of people will start looking at ethno-nationality over nationality, because the fact that the way diversity is being pushed on them, they will see as proof that diversity is a bad thing. And in all fairness, it's getting harder and harder to argue against that.
Yeah, but you're arguing this as if you know what people think and what their lives are like.
No, but I do know how ethno-nationalists think, because I have spoken with quite a few.
Okay, I'm not disputing ethno-nationalists exist. I'm talking about
I'm not saying it's a good idea. Don't get me wrong.
No, I didn't say you said it was a good idea, but you seem convinced, ironically, as an echo of the fucking SJWs, that that people will just listen to various arguments and be taken in by it, and I don't believe it.
The problem is that most people are identitarians, whether we like it or not. And the problem with that is that the whole polarization of society serves only one purpose. It polarizes. Centrists aren't on polar opposites. Do you understand what I mean with that?
Yeah, I just don't agree with your actual argument. I agree with the bullshitty, vague generalities, but I don't agree with the specific argument that in a country like Britain, you see, we're not America. We don't have basically black America and white America. We have much more mixed communities. We have good relations with the vast majority of the non-white people. The whole idea of white versus person of color is meaningless in the United Kingdom.
Yeah, it should be everywhere. I mean,
no, I'm saying so. The argument that people see English, just to talk about the English, purely on skin color lines is no longer true, and it hasn't been true for a long time, and therefore,
John,
being English is about being English. It's not about being white.
I know, and I'm not saying that it is, but it's starting to become true because people are being forced into.
No, but you're saying this, and I don't see it.
Okay, well, let me explain it to you in a slightly different manner. Mr. 88 made a list of people who are Dutch: the Antillans, the Moluccas, Indonesians. He forgot Surinamers because 1980 was still the Netherlands. These are all Dutch people.
Mm-hmm.
And still, when the policies are driving people into polar opposites, these distinctions no longer are part of it.
Mhm.
And Jimmy Stiffing himself as well. I mean, if you have people that identify and consider themselves as part of your society, Dutch in this case, then it's easier to incorporate them. But if they themselves already don't consider themselves Dutch,
Yeah.
Mhm.
and this will continue to drive the divide. I mean, if
Where it exists.
no, it doesn't have to exist to begin with. That's the worst part. It may dredge up things from 20 years, 40 years, 100 years ago. Look at America now. Compare America
I
now.
do not want to talk about America. It is
It's
so
a great
atypical.
example, though.
It's not.
Yes,
it is
it is.
so atypical.
No, it's not, because 20, 30 years ago, identity politics hardly didn't exist at all in America. There was black and white by the identitarians, but most people didn't care.
No, I'm sorry, you're wrong. The race rights of the 1960s were the race rights of the 1960s. Those divisions have always existed because first they had slavery, then they had their Jim Crow and all that racial segregation. So it is baked into their society.
No, it's not. But
Yeah, it's very racialized.
It is. It's baked into their society. Black people in America talk differently. You can hear a black American and distinguish them from a white American. You cannot do that in Britain.
But still, when you're talking about black people in America, there are black people who will consider themselves the outcast, and there are black people that consider themselves part of America. And if you take those, I mean, you can drive a line within the black community, to say it like that. And the ones in favor of being American was a bigger group than the ones in favor of calling themselves not American for whatever reason.
And yet 90+% of black Americans vote for the Democratic Party no matter what.
And therein lies a problem, but this is because of polarization. I'm sorry, I need a fast bio break. I'll be right back. The two of you keep the stream alive.
Davey, he says black English have distinct accents. There are accents which originated in the black British community. That is true, but that is not the same as or even many black English people. Secondly, a lot of white British people growing up in similar neighbourhoods have adopted the black English accent, and therefore it's less of a black English accent.
Well, here in the Netherlands, all the people from the colonies, let's say, they don't consider themselves Dutch either. They kind of hate it, but it's easy to hate on our country because it gives them a sense of victimhood, even though we just treat them right. Our colonies, they're autonomous. They have their own government. There is just free travel and such, and they can profit from all the good things here, but still they don't like it. But they will still want to live here. They just want to hate on.
Well,
on
the problem is if
them.
you've got a population who are perpetually fed a victim narrative and are never fed a counter argument, then what a surprise. You end up with feminism and the whole, pay gap bollocks, right?
So social currency.
Yeah. But here's the thing, okay. As somebody, Mr. 88 pointed out, British Indians are British as well.
Yeah. I consider them Dutch too, in a sense.
No, but they consider themselves, not what you consider
like
them,
that.
but they consider themselves.
That's the main difference. They have to consider themselves part of it.
Yeah, I know.
And if they don't even do that first thing, then it makes it harder. But even people who are considering themselves will need to start defending their position. And the worst part is they will need to defend their position against the people of color that don't identify as part of society. But they, at a certain point in time, also need to defend themselves against people they would naturally align with.
Yeah, but here's the thing. see, because I can only go by Britain, right? But in Britain, people know it's not skin color because
It's class.
the Pakistani people are, they're contiguous with northwest India.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, in the British mind, there's a reason the term Paki is an insult, which doesn't have an equivalent for Indian people. And this goes back a long way.
Well, I mean, let's be honest. Deobandi Islam is a form of Islam only found in Pakistan, Bangladesh, and Myanmar, and it's very much anti-British.
Yeah,
literally anti-British.
It is one of the most extreme sects, and this is the point. And most
No.
people.
That's the worst part. It's not one of the extreme ones. I mean, it's
not.
not.
I heard it was. So sorry.
No,
pardon me for passing on.
No. It is very much extreme anti-British. It's not. I mean, if you look at Wahhabism is far more extreme than Deobandi. But Deobandi.
Okay, that's not what I'd heard. I do apologise for having read something else and believed it.
But this is the point. It's specifically anti-British.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, it's obvious that the British people then would start to be specifically anti-people of this faith.
Well, yes, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because that's not my point. My point is that the British people do differentiate between Sikhs and Hindus and other people from the Indian subcontinent and the Muslims from Pakistan. And this was my point, that it's not about skin color, but it's about other differentiators.
Yes, but the longer this drags on, the harder that differentiation becomes.
Well, it's probably the way they differentiate themselves, how they themselves act in the environment, in the English environment.
The point is that Mardwain was saying it was all down to ethnicity, and I'm saying it's not.
I'm not saying it's all down to ethnicity. What I'm saying is that there will be people who will make it be all about ethnicity.
Yes, there will always and have always been people like the British National Party, and they get no traction.
But there will be more and more people who will give people.
Okay, that is your opinion. I see no evidence of it.
Well, we do see evidence of that. I mean, it's very small, but we do see evidence.
You say you see evidence. I see no evidence. This is what I'm saying.
Last week we were talking about nationalistic violence. Remember?
Going through that paper, yeah.
Yeah, there is an increase in ethno-nationalistic violence. Now, it's very small. I mean, it's up from 2 to 5 out of a few hundred or 100 something. It's hardly anything, but it is an uptick.
No, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
that's a statistical blip. You cannot extrapolate anything.
But it is something we should pay attention.
And it wasn't just 2 to 5. There were 2 incidents in a period in the United Kingdom, and then there were 5 incidents in Germany and France. So they're not even the same country.
No, but that's the whole thing. It's not country-based. Ethno-nationalism is country-based.
You can't say it's not country-based and then go back to
Before you start laughing, mate, trust me on this one. Ethno-nationalists in France are 100% able to work with ethno-nationalists in Germany, in Sweden, and in Belgium. But they will all recognize that, hey, you know what? Your country. I will support you to your country, and you will support me to my country. That's what ethno-nationalism is turning into.
Well, you know what I said about how you can have a huge percentage increase from nothing to just above nothing? This is what we're talking about.
But it's a growing form. And
I don't care. If it's nothing to a little bit more than nothing, I don't care.
No. The terrorism is nothing to a little bit more than nothing. If we look at groups, Nordic Front in Norway, Sweden, and Denmark, AFD in Germany. I forgot movement in Belgium. There's a movement. They're not a political party.
Do you know why?
What?
Okay.
Good morning, Anitak, and hi there, Carlos.
Oh, hey, Carlos.
By the way, Carlos.
No, we wanted to talk to you privately, mate. It was about something else. It's about something to do with your field and getting your advice on that field.
Yeah,
on Neanderthal skulls.
No. It was about the emergence of civilization things in Europe.
And skulls.
It's not about. No, it's not about.
It's always about skulls with him.
No, it's not.
I'm joking.
Yeah, but St. Clair made a video. John and St. Clair want to talk about it. They asked me to moderate it, and I asked basically both of them, and I'm asking you now, Carlos, if you can be part of it too, because it is your expertise as well.
Yes, exactly, Jimmy. Exactly. That I always get a bit antsy when people talk about skulls. But oh dear, where were we? Yeah.
But the one thing that globalism has done is it changed ethno-nationalism into a very inward movement. Where ethno-nationalism had...
Oh, sorry. No, I did have a point. Okay, so here's my point. Here's the problem. Do you remember... I mean, it's been said several times, right? Okay, Jordan Peterson's used it. He said, if you won't talk about something, and the only people who will talk about that thing, and that thing is true, and the only people who talk about it are on the extreme, it takes people to the extreme.
Yeah.
This is what's happening with these right-wing parties.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're the only ones who not merely are over there, but are way, 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 way across into the centre too.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. And so you can't take their popularity as their most extreme position, but as their more central position.
I understand. But the fact is, what is central or what is extreme is based on, well, situational, I think. So the more people who are extreme, the more extreme the center becomes. And we do change our stance based on what we associate ourselves with. Most people have a very hard time to recognizing that they can't really influence the groups they are part of and then become part of that group, even though they may not have started there.
Yeah, that is true. But my point is you can't merely take the fact that people are looking for a stance that is not represented elsewhere in the political spectrum. Okay, that's the only place they find any sense of what they're looking for. Yeah. So that's where they go. It happened in the UK. Okay, the BNP presented themselves as reasonable.
Yeah.
And they got a lot of support. They got a lot of local councillors. Then Nick Griffin, the head of the BNP, went on national television, made a complete arse of him, and their support collapsed.
Yes, because there were alternatives.
No, because people would not accept what he said.
Well, but also because there were alternatives. If there weren't any alternatives, then there would still be a collapse, but people would return because there's nowhere else to go.
Yes, I know, but that is a wider political problem. My point is it's not a demonstration of support for those radical extreme positions, is my point.
But if people have nowhere else to go, they will become more...
No, they will support the party. Doesn't mean they support the radical positions.
If that's the only place where they feel that they can be heard, they will talk to these people. And
yes, they will talk to these people, but it doesn't.
John, please let me finish my sentence. I'm trying to let you finish. Please let me finish. They know this. This is fact. This has been studied many a time before. If I put you in a group of 10 people you feel on one way or other some connection with, and those 10 people, well, those 9 people are extreme into one thing, which you are not, and given enough time, you will move towards that extreme.
Yes.
So if there are no other alternatives,
but you're getting the numbers inverted.
No, that's not true. Because you could live in a society or a group of people of thousands, but if you hang in a group of 10, you will still model yourself as that group of 10, not the society of 100.
Yes, but you were saying that we've got this large increase in support for these extreme parties, which means the majority of people aren't holding the extreme views.
But the fact that a lot of people are changing their views because of this is a problem.
Okay, so this is the thing I haven't seen evidence of.
Yeah, we have.
You say you have.
Okay.
Don't project it onto me. I said I haven't.
Okay.
So don't say yes, we have. You can say I have, and you can present evidence.
Let me point out some of the evidence. Marie Le Pen, France. Vlaams Belang, Belgium. AFD, Germany. Santini, Italy.
You're talking about
Netherlands.
You're talking about parties. I want the evidence that people are changing their views.
These parties are growing, and people have changed their views massively.
Okay, thank you. And I haven't seen evidence of that.
Yeah, you have.
I haven't. Don't tell me what I think.
I don't know how you can't have seen this then, because these parties are growing massively.
No, I know the parties.
Even though people know precisely what they're standing for, they are growing massively. And the fact that they are growing massively
tell us
something.
No. You're saying you have evidence that the actual views of the supporters of these parties are becoming more radical. I don't take... I've only explained why these parties are attracting people with which you agreed. I have seen no evidence that the actual views of the actual people have grown more radical. And you're saying, well, I'm going to give you this analogy which doesn't stand up to scrutiny, and that's proof. And it's not proof.
If they wouldn't have been changing into the radicality of the people, they wouldn't have supported these parties, because what set these parties apart from all of the other parties in their country is the nationalistic tendencies, and in some cases even nationalistic, ethno-nationalistic tendencies. Though most of them are anti-Muslim, some of them are actually anti anything that isn't their own country.
Okay.
For example, the only thing that sets the PVV apart from VVD in the Netherlands is its anti-Muslim stance and his reluctance to open the borders to foreigners. That's the only difference between the VVD and the PVV, and still the PVV is growing. And there is nothing else that sets them apart.
Okay, so as a lifelong lefty, being against immigration and being highly dubious of Islam right now, seem very sound survival instincts. Doesn't make them right wing. It just these are classic British left wing positions.
I didn't say it makes them right wing.
I'm really sorry that I have not understood your point that you seem to be very insistent on.
It makes them nationalistic. That's the point. And it's not making them nationalistic as in altogether.
You said ethno-nationalistic.
Ethno-nationalistic.
Nativist.
But that still doesn't make it right wing.
Okay, then you oh, for goodness sake, everyone uses these terms and you think you've got a handle on it and you're talking the same language as everyone else, and someone comes along and says, well, I know everyone else is using these terms in this way, but I'm not going to use these terms in this way.
I didn't use right wing once.
I know you didn't.
So why is that now the argument? I'm sorry, I don't understand this.
Okay.
I was talking about
all these parties are classified as right-wing because they're ethno-nationalists, or perceived or portrayed to be ethno-nationalists, even when they aren't.
Well, if I look at AFD or Vlaams Belang or PVV, you could consider them ethno-nationalist.
Not really.
Right, okay.
And they are growing in popularity.
You see, the problem is you're conflating several arguments. You're saying being against mass immigration and being wary of Muslims is the same as being ethno-nationalist. And I would say...
That's not what I'm saying at all.
Oh, okay.
What I'm saying is that these parties they're not anti-Muslim. Well, they're also
PV is very anti-Muslim. Oh,
Yeah,
well,
but-
anti-Islam, not anti-Muslim.
they're
Anti-Islam.
anti-Islam, but they're also anti-Poland. They're also anti-Romania. They're also anti-Bulgaria. They're
To be
also
fair.
anti-black people. Well, not black people as such, but black people that come from Africa at this
Well-
point in time. Not the ones that came 100 years ago, the ones that come now.
Well, more anti-immigration. That's not necessarily anti-anyone. That's
Yeah,
just...
it's not necessarily ethno-nationalist.
I don't mind. I've worked with Poles and with Romanians and Portuguese people, and they have. I respect their work ethic, but I'd rather not have them here because it's not good for our country and it's not good for their country. It's
Exactly.
But I still respect their work ethic, and I've learned a lot from them. Working with them, but still, I'd rather not have them here.
But that's another thing. I mean, when we talk about ethno-nationalism has a negative connotation because everyone hates the other. Where ethno-nationalism in the current day is more like, I would want them to have their own country and their country be successful. I want to help them make their country successful, just as I would like them to help me make my country successful, but them in their country and ours in our country. It's not that one is better, but each one of us should have their own place.
A place for every race.
And that's the difference between ethno-nationalism from the Nazis and ethno-nationalism now.
Yeah, it's all cultural anartech. What the?
Yeah, and this was my whole argument. This has been my whole argument, that it's not racial, it's cultural.
It's the way people present themselves and act.
Listen, I like to think. You know that I'm all for cultural cohesiveness. I've mentioned this many a time. I still am. I don't want it to be ethnical. But what I'm seeing is that it's turning ethnical because there is nothing else it can turn into, because no one else is allowed to talk.
Yeah, but it's also people are constantly talking about race and ethnicity and this and that and diversity. So people will start thinking in racial terms because they're being bombarded with it. And even I catch myself thinking in these terms, and it's toxic. It feels like cancer.
It's not coming from the so-called ethno-nationalists. It's coming from the frigging racists on the left. The so-called tolerant bigots.
That is. I agree with you 100% on that. So it's not because of ethno-nationalism that this is happening.
But I don't see it. I'm sorry, and this is might just me being blind, and I'm talking me. I'm not talking. It isn't happening. I'm saying I don't see it.
Well, there are plenty of signs out there, mate. Sorry.
Yeah, and what I'm saying is that what you presented as evidence, I would suggest is I wouldn't interpret that same evidence the way you have done.
Okay. Sounds like
exactly an attack. She says opposition will conflate a statement to be racial when it may be a cultural point they are making. And this is my argument about many of the people attracted to these so-called ethno-nationalist parties is they're not being ethno-nationalist. First, they've got nowhere else to go. And second is if those parties became explicitly ethno-nationalist, they would leave.
But that's the thing, though. We see that that's not always the case, and
Okay.
it's not ethno-nationalistic as such. And I'm not a favor of it. Blah blah blah. I'm not going to repeat myself. The problem is that people are being driven. This is what happened. If, for example, if we look at the start of the 20th century in Italy, or midway Germany, the Weimar Republic period, so 1930s. People are driven to extremes. They don't start there. And eventually those extremes, even though, I mean, hell, the Nazis never were a majority in Germany. But they drove the agenda.
Yeah.
But they were never a majority.
But Mudwing, they were elected democratically. Come on, man.
Yeah, but even then they didn't
No,
get a maximum.
they weren't. Not really.
No, but there's a great video by so I think it's called No Fox Given, and it's about the way that a vocal minority can only needs to be 10%, and it can change all of society. And this is what you've got. This is what people won't understand. We go, oh, there's a majority for this and a majority for that. But then when you actually examine it, in fact, most of the people don't support this or that, which is what I was trying to talk about with these parties. It doesn't mean that the people supporting these parties take on the extreme positions. But when you vote for a party or support a party, you have to make a very complex calculation across a huge range of issues and come to a single conclusion.
But eventually people will start taking those extreme positions. That's the worst part of it. And this is not something I say. This is something that has been proven time and again in sociological studies on different points. There no fair. But this is what happens. People will take a stance all of a sudden. There is no bigger way to get people into an area where they're not supposed to go than by saying you're not supposed to go there.
But it's also because people are being silenced. So if they make a bit of an edgy joke, they'll get silenced. But so they want to push people's buttons more because they want to push back. So it gets more extreme. It becomes more edgier, more and more extreme. And yeah, possibly if people are being driven away from certain platforms, they're being driven to platforms where mainly extreme people come. Yeah, then they might become more extreme themselves too.
But no, but here's the thing. First, it is the SJW talking point that these so-called parties are more extreme than they actually are.
Mm-hmm.
The second point is you say, oh, these people are becoming more radicalized as ethno-nationalists, and that is a failure of the mainstream parties. It's not a fault of anyone who's saying, oh, I'm an ethno-nationalist. That's the fault of the mainstream parties. Why have they abandoned the sensible ground that the people want to go to? And then it's no good saying, oh, well, and then we've got these people being more ethno-nationalists. Well, that's easily solved, isn't it?
Is it?
Yeah, because if like the Conservative Party in the United Kingdom became a Conservative Party again and ditched the feminist pseudo-socialist bullshit they've been pushing for the past decade, then
They?
Sorry?
Have they?
Yes.
I haven't noticed much of that.
Okay. One of the Tory candidates, I don't know the word, say there were 10. One wasn't a feminist, a self-avowed feminist.
Mm-hmm.
This is a Conservative Party.
I would say none of them had to be a feminist, but
I didn't say they had to be. I'm saying they were feminists. They said they were feminists. Self-avowed.
I'm sorry, making a bit of noise now. Sorry. Yeah, but still, I mean that they do or
What do
do
you
not.
mean, but still?
That they do or do not say that they are doesn't really change much, does it?
Oh, for fuck's sake.
Oh,
Seriously.
seriously.
Seriously. Seriously.
If it is something they
So the fucking ethno-nationalists you claim are ethno-nationalists aren't really ethno-nationalists because they only say they are.
no, there's a difference. There are plenty of.
No, that isn't.
Let me finish my sentence. Because in your example, what you're saying is only one identify as feminist, therefore the rest are not. Therefore, the rest are not. What I'm saying.
I didn't. I said only one didn't identify as a feminist explicitly.
Okay. And how is that changing?
What do you mean, how's that changing?
Well, you said they're no longer feminists. So
I
how's that?
didn't.
Okay.
I said the opposite.
But what I'm trying to tell you is when it's not the ones that claim that they are ethno-nationalists that are the ones you should be looking for. It's the ones that don't claim they are ethno-nationalists you should be looking for because they're the ones that are changing the narrative.
No.
The same with
honestly, you never made that argument.
I've been constantly trying to make that argument.
No.
There are political parties growing based on ethno-nationalistical stances, even though they don't actually call themselves ethno-nationalists. But they're growing still.
Okay.
And the ones that are
say they are on ethno-nationalist stances.
And the ones that do call themselves ethno-nationalists are growing as well. So the alternatives are gone. It's polarization all over. And that's the issue.
Okay. I don't recognize your world, to be quite honest, at this point.
Oh, okay, that's possible. And no, it was a crisp bag, Anirtak. Sorry.
But my point is this. I said that the Conservatives were feminists and pseudo-socialists. You said you didn't agree. And I said, of all the Conservative candidates, all but one explicitly said they were feminists.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
To prove that they're feminists, they literally said they were feminists. I mean, I'm sorry. And then you're saying, but that doesn't mean anything.
Well, it doesn't actually, but okay.
It does.
So what does it mean then?
It means they're fucking feminists. And not just that, but just look at the history of the last few years of the legislation that's been pushed and the policy shifts we have had in this country that have been feminist positions.
So how has that changed?
What's change got to do with it? I said the Conservative Party are feminists and pseudo-socialists. What's change got to do with it?
So how is society responding to it? Let me then phrase it like that.
Okay, I'm going to go and vote. Conservative Party, feminists and pseudo-socialists. Labour Party, feminists and actual socialists. Liberals, feminists and pseudo-socialists. What a choice.
And that's when other parties come up.
But they don't, and I have explained exactly the inertial problems to ever having a new party in this country.
Yeah, that's to do with your political system. I understand that, but there are
the country I'm talking about.
There are different parties standing up, though, John. Let's be honest. I mean, there is UKIP, there is Brexit.
Okay.
There's Britain.
Okay. We were arguing about the spectrum of parties in the United Kingdom when I said the Conservative Party could fix the problem of people looking to extremes by becoming the Conservative Party again.
I'm not sure. They might. I don't know.
Oh, for goodness sake, this is the thing that we were talking about that led up to the latest bit of you arguing for the sake of it.
No, I wasn't, mate. You were conflating feminism. Sorry, whether you call yourself feminist or not feminist, to whether you call yourself ethno-nationalist.
I didn't. I literally didn't.
Well,
I literally didn't. What I said was, you earlier used an argument that these people are ethno-nationalists, and then said, therefore they will drag other people into ethno-nationalism. And I said, but when I call people feminists, and you said, oh, well, they only call themselves feminists, that means nothing. And so I sarcastically said, oh, so people who call themselves ethno-nationalists are ethno-nationalists, but people who call themselves feminists are not feminists.
No, that's.
I wasn't comparing.
I guess we misunderstood each other then.
I wasn't comparing the two. It's just that I was explaining the British political parties, and you were arguing the toss. Instead of listening to it.
At the same time, if we look at the way feminism has grown in the last, well, let's say 100 years, a lot of it is based on how the narrative is being spun. And the main reason why so many people are now turning against feminism is because there are now people spinning another narrative.
I'm sorry, what has this got to do with the fact that if our Conservative Party actually...
No, let me finish the point then. I will get there, trust me.
I'm honestly not convinced you're even talking about the same subject anymore, but anyway.
I am, because this is how societies, this is how people work in groups. Feminism grew because it got a lot of attention, it got a lot of media coverage, everyone was talking feminist.
No, that's not how feminism grew.
Are you going to let me finish, mate?
No, you made a statement, which is I disagree, so I'm disagreeing with that
statement. Okay, but I wasn't done with my statement. You can disagree with me all you want, but then at least let me finish it. I don't need you to agree with me, but I would like to make my point. The point I was trying to make is that feminism grew because a lot of people are being told feminism is good, blah, 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 blah. This comes from the media, this comes from education, this comes from politics. And for a long time, they could do this unopposed. Now, people are starting to oppose them. What's happening with the diversity talks versus ethno-nationalism is diversity has been pushed for a long time, and now people are starting to oppose them. But what they are doing, just like they did with the MRAs, when they started talking against feminism, they are pushing them away and they're pushing them into their own, well, echo chambers is too big a word, but they're pushing them into smaller groups where they strengthen their point of view. And this is what's happening with ethno-nationalism as well. They're being pushed away, but they are strengthening their point of view. And therefore, these groups are growing. This is, unfortunately, a very natural way of human interaction. You will start talking the talk of the group you are part of. You will start talking the talk of the bread you eat, so to speak.
You know you've done it now, because you've got two of us who are MRAs, and you said it's like what feminists did to MRAs, and you implied we've been pushing to an echo chamber as if you have the faintest idea what we believe.
It's not about what you believe, it's what happens to people.
No, it's not. Sorry. You are saying a statement.
Hey, but guys, I'm going to leave this hangout before I wake up the entire house.
Okay.
So I'll be back in the chat.
No problem, mate.
That's all right, mate. That's all right.
It was good talking to you guys.
Yeah, you're more than welcome.
Till next time.
See you next time.
Hobnobs in Guinness.
But John, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what the end point is. What I'm trying to portray, what I'm trying to explain, is the activities before that.
Yeah.
and they are the same.
No, your whole narrative was bollocks. It was a gross simplification and distortion of how things work.
Okay, then explain to us why.
No, I am not going to explain things why. I am instead, I made a point about the Conservative Party being currently a pale imitation of the Labour Party and far to the left.
Yes.
And said that they need to move back to being a right-wing party. You disagreed, and apparently your explanation was supposed to explain why I was wrong, and you didn't even talk about it. As I had predicted, you were not even having the same conversation. You stopped talking about, oh, and then groups will all congeal on the point of view. So what? Not the point. I'm talking about in the United Kingdom, there's no one to the right of centre. And if there's no one to the right of centre, the way to fix that is for the supposed right-wing party to be a right-wing party again.
There's a reason why no one is right of centre.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. I didn't say there wasn't a reason. I said...
No. But that reason is the problem. And that reason causes polarization.
No. Hang on. Not that's changing the subject entirely to call it polarization, because my point is that there's an incredible homogeneity between the parties. They're almost identical to each other. That's not polarization. That's the opposite.
I guess we disagree on that one.
Yeah, because I'm talking about the state of these parties and how in step with each other they are on so many issues when they used to oppose each other.
Mm-hmm.
And you're saying, oh, well, you've got this force where people fall into lockstep. Yes, exactly. And that lockstep of all the parties is the same across the parties.
And that's why there is a rise in ethnonationalism. Well, not just ethnonationalism.
I'm not disputing that, but what I'm saying is, and it will easily be solved. No, I said no. Okay, I don't call it ethnonationalism. I call it oh, fuck's sake, jeez, honestly, no. I said there are no mainstream right-wing parties, and that to solve the problem you described could be fixed if the supposed right-wing party became a right-wing party again. And then you disagreed with that for some strange reason.
Yeah, I don't think it's only the centrist right-wing parties that need to return to the right wing.
Fine, that's not disagreeing with me. That's a qualification.
What I did say is that I think there is more to it than that.
No, you didn't. I'm sorry. You
there is.
Disagree with me. And then you say you will explain why I'm wrong. You don't talk about the subject at all, and now you say, well, actually, you were saying there's more to it. Fine. When one makes a simple statement like it would be easily fixed by going to right, that is a simplification. By definition, that is not the whole story. I understand that.
Okay.
Oh, for goodness sake. The point being is that there is a void, and that the fault of people going over to these parties you deem to be highly ethno-nationalistic, which I think is an exaggeration. Okay, I think half the time they aren't ethno-nationalistic necessarily, but are portrayed as ethno-nationalistic, which is not the same thing, just as Tommy Robinson is called a far-right racist, even though he's neither on the right nor a racist.
Yes.
And my point is that there's a problem caused by a void of right-wing parties, of people standing up for those traditional values. And this can be illustrated in the best way by 9 out of 10 candidates for the Conservative Party of the United Kingdom, the so-called right-wing party, publicly declaring themselves
Well, it could be a good first step.
as feminists.
Well, not declaring themselves as feminists.
No, they did. They were asked, and only one said he wasn't.
I know, but if right-wing parties would, well, Conservative Party in the UK would once again become conservative, yeah, that might be a good first step.
Yeah, thank you.
But the main problem is the polarization. And because certain viewpoints aren't allowed to be had, that's why things like nationalism, ethno-nationalism are on a rise. And I'm not in favor of that. I don't think it's a good thing. But it is a problem.
Yeah, but that's the thing. I have no problem with the rise of Marine Le Pen, for example.
Mm-hmm. But Marine Le Pen is an ethno-nationalist, even though she doesn't really say it anymore. Well, look at her history. And I'm not talking about her long history. I'm even talking about the history of the last few years. And I'm still in favor of her over Macron, don't get me wrong. But
sometimes you need a correction.
True.
And this is my point about the British Conservative Party. The problem is that they are drifting, becoming pinker.
Yeah.
More and more pink.
But corrections like this tend to coincide with bloodshed.
Well, we're getting the bloodshed from the shift to the left. This is the problem. This is why so many talk about, is there an impending civil war in the United States? And it's not coming from the right. It's coming from the well, you know, I hate using these terms left and right, but you know what I mean. It's coming from the authoritarians, who are what we call the left.
And they thrive best in polarization.
Yeah. But the point is, they don't need people to disagree with them because they invent people disagreeing with them.
Yes. But unfortunately, one of the inventions that they bring forth is ethno-nationalism. Because let's be honest, it did come from them. Because the whole idea of ethno-nationalism is something relatively new. Hell, nationalism is new. It's only been around for about 200 years.
Yeah, I think, well, a week's a long time in politics, so I don't know whether you were right.
That is true too. That is true too.
And one of the fundamental problems we have now is we have this peculiar effect of time where, so, as I said, you've got people arguing from a late 18th century to the mid 19th century point of view, with people who are taking a 21st century point of view using the language of the late 18th and mid 19th.
Yeah, that's another problem.
And everyone fails to understand everyone else because they're talking at cross purposes the whole time. Now, the very fact that, say, a Marxist is thinking in terms of the political situation of the 1850s is insane. Because we're not in the 1850s. We don't have the political conditions, the economic conditions, the social conditions, or anything else of the 1850s.
No, that's true.
And so to follow an ideology that was in the 1850s, and which even its creator intended to be updated continually, is insane.
No, I agree with you on that. Thank you.
But likewise, the conversation I was having with the other night about the Conservatives, the father of conservatism is considered to be Edmund Burke. And the problem with conservatism is, if you observe the existing social order, whether it's good or not depends on the existing social order. And I'm afraid to say my view of the social order at the time of Edmund Burke is it deserved to die because it was classist, discriminatory, you know, had slavery and things, you know. So no, I wasn't a conservative. I wouldn't have been a conservative in the 1770s. However, I'm happy to consider myself conservative now because we have general equality and many things worth defending.
No, yeah, I agree with you. I'm sorry, Mr. 88. America is older than 200 years, and the Dutch were the first seculars after the 80 Years' War. Nationalism is a bit older. No, I understand what you're saying, but that's not about nationalism. That's about control. At the point in time, for example, if we're talking about the 80 Years' War, it's more on the are we under control of the Spanish king or not? That wasn't about which nationality we were. The concept of nationality didn't really exist. Even in the 80 Years' War or years after that, it was far more common for mercenary soldiers, and there were no, or hardly any, standing armies of nations. I'm not in the Hangout anymore. Oh, right, okay. The whole idea of nationality and standing armies is relatively new. It started with the French, which started with Napoleon. Before that, nearly all armies were mercenary armies or not conscripted armies. And the idea of a country as such, as a nationality, was gone. Even this is true for America. When the American Revolution started against the English, it wasn't about we are America, you are English. It was more about you want us to do something that we don't want to do.
No taxation without representation was the argument, which happened to be in conflict with the basic monarchistic and aristocratic views of the rulers in Britain. Is how dare these upstarts demand a say? Don't they know?
Yeah.
Parliament is there to advise the king, and the king basically decides everything because that was still the attitude at the time. And it was an instinctive reaction by George III and his ministers that we are not going to let these upstarts tell us what to do.
Yeah. But this isn't, funny enough, the concept of that wasn't nationalism. The same is true for the rebellion against the monarch during the French Revolution. It's not about nationalism. It was about we don't want you to be our rulers. But when Napoleon then started, well, not Napoleon, the French army started creating their own French army because we are all French, we should stick together, we should fight our enemies together. That is when nationalism more or less started.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't happen before that. I mean, John and I often talked about, for example, the war between the English and the Dutch.
No. Let's be fair. You talk about it because you revel in the fact that you kicked our asses.
Well, that too, but no, not really. That's not the point I was wanting to make. But what a lot of people seem to have mistaken or stopped remembering was that the Dutch basically fought on both sides of that war.
But that's also true
because the sailors were Dutch, not the officers. Don't get me wrong; the officers were English or Dutch, but the sailors, they went where the money was.
No, but even more, there's a lot talking about nationalism. In a way, the oldest nationalism in these parts is Scotland.
Yeah, that is true.
It's Scotland.
And even they were national because they all had their own tribe.
No. But there was a clear Scottish against English identity.
Yes.
So the
Scottish against everyone else identity.
The Scottish battle, the battle they commemorate, is Bannockburn. The battle that the English are supposed to commemorate was Culloden. Culloden, much more than what you were talking about with the navies, literally was Scotland against Scotland, officers and all. It was actually Lowland Scotland against Highland Scotland.
Yeah.
And yet it was portrayed as England versus Scotland, but it wasn't. It was
That's the old joke, though. I mean, the Scottish are always at war with the Welsh, the Irish, the English, and if they're not at war at one of these, then they're probably at war with their most ancient of all enemies, the Scottish.
Yeah, but no, I mean, because you have a fundamental sort of religious-based split amongst the Scots.
Mm-hmm.
There's a strong Protestant element in Wales. People call the Church of England Protestant. It isn't technically true. It is still a Catholic church, just not the Roman.
Sorry, I'm going to be AFK for a fast bio break again. I'm very sorry.
But the Lowland Scots, that's where Protestantism is strongest in the United Kingdom as a rule. And I know there's chapels in parts of Wales, but the Highland Scots were one of the bastions of Catholicism, which is why Morning Prince Charlie went to the Highland Scots for his support. And so it was actually the division that split the two sides during the Jacobite rebellion was greatest in Scotland. The Lowland Scots were more against the Highland Scots than probably many of the English, because there were pockets of Catholicism in England, especially places like Norfolk, Yorkshire. Let's see, the atheist. And yeah, so you can blame nationalism on the Scots. That's the message of the yeah. And I've been trying to get out of Ludicrous an explanation as to why they make flutes out of oranges in Ireland. Yeah, the kilt, ironically, is a Victorian invention, is what I've heard. That is tartan.
I'm back.
Good. I was killing them with dead air.
But the thing is, though, if we look at nationalism, because I understand.
I know you did Ludicrous, but what has vitamin C done to anybody?
It makes your pee more expensive.
Sorry?
It makes your pee more expensive.
No. But it says what vitamin C makes your pee more expensive, so that's why you eat it.
That's the main reason to use vitamin C. It makes your pee more expensive.
Oh, okay.
Because every bit of vitamin C you have in your body doesn't use, it pees out.
Okay.
So if you take vitamin C supplements, it makes your pee more expensive.
Oh, yeah, that's sound reasoning. That is.
Mm-hmm. I don't know who will buy it off of you, but yeah, that's a different story altogether. I wanted to come back on nationalism for a little bit, though, because Mr. 88, clan versus clans, we didn't help the resistance against the English crown as well. That's the thing. Before nationalism, you had all forms of in-group preferences. The thing that sets nationalism apart from all the other in-group ideas or all the other family structures or clan structures is that it made the in-group larger. And that's basically the thing that's been happening for the last few hundred years. The in-group has become larger and larger and larger and larger and larger. First it was province, then it became state. Now they're pushing in Europe, they're pushing for Europe, they're already pushing for globalism. As a response to that, people are trying to pull it back again. And one of the ways to do that is to pull it to a national level.
Yeah, but that's one of the ironies is you get exceptions, and the United States is the weirdest exception of them all. Okay,
Mhm.
it is so unusual on so many levels. But this idea that you can create unity on large scales is insane because it doesn't work. It is a highly unstable. Highly. You might get a geographical unity, like the United Kingdom, and even then, parts of it can't stand it, and they're constantly resisting. You look at what happened in Czechoslovakia was an invention of the Treaty of Versailles. Didn't exist until 1980, 1990, whenever it was signed. What happened after the fall of the Iron Curtain? How long was Czechoslovakia?
Yeah,
Almost
not
a blink of an eye.
yeah. Once it became its own country, it split up pretty fast.
Yugoslavia,
Same thing.
same thing.
Well,
Look at Spain. Look at the United Kingdom. These even geographical units are unstable. And they're trying to make Europe a country?
yeah.
They're having a laugh.
Well, I wouldn't call it a laugh, but I can see the joke.
No, but you know what I mean? They're having a laugh.
Yeah.
You know, they're just morons.
No, that's true. And the whole concept of state is just to create a bigger in-group. But at a certain point in time, that in-group becomes too large for the people in the group.
Well, it inevitably becomes more and more authoritarian because you cannot govern a large polity by consent because the polity is too... They have too many conflicting interests and want different things. And you can't have a state run that satisfies those different interests and different things. Certainly not with the mindset they've got that, oh no, we know what's best for you. You're going to do what we tell you. Yeah.
And indeed, as Jimmy says, even in a country like the Netherlands, there is friction between provinces or even between towns. Now, as long as those frictions can be overcome with relative ease, you can still say we're one country. For example, Feyenoord is Rotterdam and Amsterdam is Ajax, and these two countries butt head over that. But when the Dutch team is playing, both fans of Ajax and of Feyenoord are still able to support the team of the Dutch. But as soon as you get people saying, well, I'm not going to support the Dutch team because it has too many people from one team and not enough from the other team, that's when the representation is gone. And this is the problem with the bigger the in-group, the harder it is to have enough representation. Does that make sense?
That's fair.
And therein lies the problem with globalism, because globalism doesn't even care about the individual.
Well, no, because you end up voting for somebody who then goes to your national parliament. They then send a representative to the European Parliament, who between themselves go and elect a supreme leader. Sorry, European president.
Yeah. And no one agrees with that, but hey, you know what?
Yeah, and you know, it's like there's no pretense of representation, because ultimately, you know, you have it like in the United Kingdom. So we're having a new election for the prime minister, and then people are saying, "Oh well, you know, we're not voting for prime minister." No, because we don't in this country. We get a leader, and we don't vote for them. We vote for a representative, and the winning set of representatives get to pick the leader. So we're already one step remote from choosing who runs the country. And then you go up to Europe, and then you're that second level away from choosing or having any say. But you certainly don't consider it when choosing your own country's representatives. You don't think, I'm going to vote for this party because when the European presidency comes up, they're going to choose X.
Mm-hmm. And therein lies, yet again, the problem.
Yeah.
Well, it's double though, because the thing is, I don't mind nationalism as such. I've mentioned many a time a cultural cohesive state, or nationalistic if you want to call it that. Yeah, that works, but it's not based on ethnicity. But the fact that people are all in favor of multicultural or diversity, yeah, that's also not the way it works.
Yeah, but you say people. The number of people who are in favour of that is basically a small percentage of people who get to run everything.
Mm-hmm.
And it is imposed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm saying it's like it's not, you can't say that the people in the country believe that.
Well,
It's imposed by an elite.
it is imposed, that is true. And it is the reason why there are so many movements against, well, globalism for one.
But here's the thing, okay. Most people just want to live their lives. And if there's people of different ethnicities or belief systems or whatever in your community works and is generally peaceful and is generally, hardworking and honest, etc., no one gives a shit about that they're different ethnicities or different belief systems because they aren't causing problems. What causes what you call ethno-nationalism is groups causing problems, especially when the establishment then goes out of its way to facilitate, excuse, give special treatment to the people causing the problems. Because all people want, as I was talking about earlier with the law, is all people want is everyone to be treated the same.
Ja. Weil der Mensch ein Mensch ist, hat er Stiefel ins Gesicht nicht gern. Er will unter sich kein Sklave sein und über sich kein Herrn. That's basically it.
Okay.
For the ones who didn't understand it, because the human is a human, or because man is man. I'm trying to translate it on the fly, which is terrible. But basically, because man is man, he doesn't like to see inequalities. He doesn't want to have a slave beneath him or a master over him.
No. Well, here's the thing. Hierarchy and being in subordinate positions are actually much less resisted than you think. They are the norm throughout the vast majority of societies through the vast majority of time.
Yes, but it depends on how the hierarchy functions.
Yes, and it depends how as I said, it shouldn't be capricious. There should be some sense at which the individual on the bottom can see it as just and natural.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is when you're undergoing societal change like we are at the moment, people can see that there's nothing just and nothing natural about getting an invading culture come in and be given special treatment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's double. I mean, yes, every group had a hierarchy, but hierarchies usually served a purpose. But to some people, especially politicians, hierarchy is the purpose. and that's what
it's always been so. That's
Sorry?
why people have always had rebellions and fought to be king or whatever. Hierarchy has always been the purpose to an extent.
Yeah, but there's more to it. I mean, being a leader is more than just sitting in front of a group of people and telling them they should give you things.
Exactly. However, one of the problems with the social fluidity of the last 100 years is that has been lost. So that there are enough people now who just think, I want to be in charge, whether to reap the benefits or so that they can get their particular vision of what should be done imposed. And the irony is that the old aristocratic attitude in the main was, it's not as simple as that. You have to look under the people you're over.
Yeah.
Now, this is not an argument for aristocracy, but because they'd done it a long time, at least they understood the quid pro quo of being in charge and being wealthy is you then have a responsibility, and you can't just use power capriciously for your own ends or whatever. I mean, it happened, and those were the people like Henry VIII who were like, I'm going to create a new church because this one won't let me divorce this wife and marry that one.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's well, that's one of the dangers of hierarchy to begin with, to be honest.
Yeah, but hierarchies are natural. This is again the other problem.
Yeah. No. I mean, hierarchies are natural, and this is why it's an old statement, I know, but the tree of freedom is planted in violence and needs a lot of fuel, and that fuel is the blood of the fighters for freedom.
Yeah. Or the price of freedom is eternal vigilance, as I like to say.
Yes.
No, actually, I was wondering about. To me, one of the most significant changes in history was the switch from the Roman Republic to an emperor.
Yeah, but this is something that I'm not quite sure why, but this is something we've seen in a lot of countries.
Sorry, I'm just saying. I think I understand why it happened.
Okay, I'm curious then. What do you think the reason is?
Okay, the fundamental problem is it's to do with size. You can govern medium-sized polities by agreement.
Mm-hmm.
It becomes impractical when everything grows too large. So you end up needing a voice, a singular will. And the problem with the singular will is that it's a single point of weakness.
Mm-hmm.
A good leader or a bad leader, everybody else is affected by that. It's like when if you look at a lot of the battles, and it's like, oh, they were swayed by the ability of the general, the commander.
Mm-hmm.
That's a huge influence on one person, and this is a weakness, and this is where we're going. If you look at the way the European Union is run, it's not run as our national parliaments tend to, which is policies can be brought up from a number of sources and debated and passed or not passed. In the European Union, the Commission decides what the law is. It puts them to Parliament, whose only options are accept or reject, and if they reject, it just goes away, tinkered with, and will keep rebounding back to a vote until it's passed.
Mm-hmm.
Which is in essence going from governance by agreement to governance by diktat,
Yeah.
which is the equivalent of going from a republic to an emperor.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough.
And
But
it's all to do with size, because once you pass a certain size, you cannot govern it by consent, by agreement.
yeah. Well, it's going to be more difficult. But the problem, if we look at, for example, okay, so the Roman Empire went into a dictatorship with Julius Caesar being the first dictator. But if we look, yes,
He wasn't. Dictator was an actual official position, and it was heavily limited.
it was, but he was the first. Well, he became the first Kaiser.
No, he didn't. He never became emperor. The first one was his son.
Yeah, well, because his son,
Adopted son.
yes, he inherited the title of Kaiser.
No, Julius Caesar was his family name.
Yes, the name was not Caesar, the name was Kaiser.
Yeah, I know you funny Europeans pronounce it properly, but we call it Caesar.
I know, I can't help that.
Yeah, but then don't quibble about
British being wrong
pronunciation.
again. Who'd have thought?
Don't quibble about pronunciation.
Well, it's a very important pronunciation error, because this is where the title Kaiser comes from.
I know.
Okay.
And Tsar, funnily enough. And the Russians were no better pronunciation than the Anglosphere.
Yes, well, yeah, true that.
And you can blame the bloody French, because it's them who pronounce C as S.
But not in front of an A. A C in front of an A is always pronounced as a K, even in France.
But in English, we have AE as its own character.
That's not my fault.
So you did.
So is it now the fault of the French or the English?
No, it's always the fault of the French. Have you learnt nothing?
Well, there is that. Anyway, it's double, because if we look, for example, at the first monarch, no, that's not true. Before the French became a republic, the Dutch already were one, but the Dutch turned into a monarch.
We had a republic.
Did you?
Yeah.
When?
1640 something to 50 something.
Yeah, wasn't it still ruled under the monarch?
There was no monarch. We chopped his head off.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, the Dutch were in the 1500s as well, I think. I'm terrible with dates. Let me see.
I'm not saying you weren't first. I'm just saying we were.
No. That's not the point I'm making. The funny thing is, the Dutch became a monarchy because of the English, because the English didn't want the Dutch to stay a republic. That's the funny thing, because the first.
You mean the only time you buggers listened to us was to make yourself a monarchy? I'm sorry, but you were obstinate the rest of the time.
Yeah, it's stupid, I know. No, it's not because of Napoleon. Napoleon was way after that. Yeah, the Republic of the United Dutch Provinces, or the Republic of the United Netherlands, was from 1588 till 1795.
Oh, that's a long time.
Yeah, it was. They were a republic well before the French were. And you are correct, Jimmy.
No, but again, you're mixing your words. There was a republic means not having a king. And then you talked about nationalism. These are not the same subject.
I know. I didn't say that, did I?
Well, you were talking about nationalism and saying the Dutch.
No, because even then it was the Republic of the Seven Netherlands. So it was more of a Bondsrepublic. It wasn't one big country. It was several countries working together. It's basically the European Union in small. Because all of those provinces had their own interests as well.
Yeah. Then you also have to look to the United Kingdom, which admittedly is still after your country, but we have been a federation of individual countries since 1707.
Yeah.
And still are.
Yeah, but Germany still is. It's not Germany, it's the Bundesrepublik. But then again, Germany was the Prussian Empire, so they haven't been that way that long.
Well, no, but I don't think the Bavarians are very chuffed about being part of the Prussian Empire.
And I think it's the Orange Revolution that started the... never mind. It's too long. I'm not here to... Yeah, no, talking about the Dutch switch from republic to monarchy. The mere point I was trying to make is that for a long time it was a republic, then it turned into a monarchy. So yeah. But one of the reasons, well, yeah, you're correct, Jimmy Stifffinger, on King Lodewijk. But the fact that we had Stadthouder, or what's the English word for it? Someone who doesn't sit on the throne but holds the throne for when the king comes back. Regent, that's the word. We call it Stadthouder. I'm not quite sure why, but yeah, words are words. One of the reasons we have regents. Sorry?
State holder?
Stadthouder.
Yeah, sounds like state holder.
No, not state, city.
Okay.
City
but it sounds like state holder, somebody who would hold a state and thus be a regent, is like a more literal term.
Well, maybe that's where it came from. That's possible, actually. I never thought of that. But Stadthouder was the name. But yeah, the Republic of the Seven Provinces actually started as a trading organization as well. That's kind of funny. It started as... No, not going to do history lessons unless people...
Oh, hang on. So what you're now saying is our current problems with the European Union are all the fault of you Dutch. Going back to your...
Actually, no, they're the fault of the Germans.
I'm joking.
No, I'm not actually. This is.
No, we know it's the fault of the Germans. Okay, we understand this.
No, but I can actually paint the line, so to speak, because the Dutch started the Dutch provinces, not the Dutch provinces. 11 Dutch cities started the Republic of the Netherlands, and they did so because they needed to form a power block against the Hansesteden. And the Hansesteden were cities that were working together in an economical block. And most of these were German.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all a power play thing. And in all fairness, if we look at Germany, France, and...
Do you mean the Hanseatic League?
Sorry?
Is that... Sorry, when you talk about the Germans, is that the Hanseatic League?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. It's just I'm familiar with the term Hanseatic League, so I was just trying to translate to my brain. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt, but I was just trying to contextualize it.
And then, I mean, if we look at, for example, France, Germany, and England, they're all three of them are basically of the same Germanic root family, so to speak.
And Belgium.
And in all fairness, the Netherlands. But
well, no, it's just that I read a book about the genetics of England, not the United Kingdom, but just of England. And apparently our closest genetic match is the Bell guy.
Oh, okay. Well, that's possible because the French were basically colonized and ruled under by Merovech Merovech was the first Germanic king of what we now call France.
Mhm.
And Merovech came from the area around, and we know this because this is where the name Merovech comes from, around the area of the Dutch rivers called Merwede.
Mhm.
So Merovech was a Germanic tribes leader that came from the Netherlands. Well, there were no Netherlands at the time, obviously, through Belgium into the lands of the Franks.
Mhm.
So, and then
but the Franks were only a small part of France.
oh yeah, but they were a small part of France, but they
But
basically conquered
sorry,
France.
and there is another link between Belgium and England. Many of the English tribes at the time of the Roman conquest had the same names as tribes in Belgium, like the Iceni.
Mm-hmm.
So there was an Iceni in England and an Iceni in Belgium.
Mm-hmm. The Dutch, by the way, aren't Frisian and Batavian. I mean, yes, there are also Dutch Frisians and Batavians, though Frisians are a different tribe altogether, and the Batavians are one group. But the people from Holland are a different form of Germanic altogether, where the Batavian are more. Now I have to dig deep into my knowledge of ancient cultures.
No, can I just answer Mr. 88?
Yeah, sure. I'm going to give my
Because he says that before England, there were Frisian fishermen that settled on the English coast. And I've no doubt that's true. But in fact, the first settlers of England were continuous. The North Sea was land. Before the end of the Ice Age, when there was still an ice age, the sea levels were lower and the North Sea was land. There were actually settlements under the North Sea. And so it wasn't a coastal thing. A lot of England was people walking literally from Europe. And the Channel was also a land bridge. Silence. Reed gone? He's gone. He has. It's just me. But no one really knows for sure about the ancestry of the English. They're much more sure about the ancestry of the Irish.
I'm back. And yeah, the ancestry of the Irish is, by the way, not Germanic.
No. They come up from Iberia in the main.
Yeah. They're Celtic. Which I didn't understand at first, but they did came from Iberia. Carlos would love to tell you that. And the Frisians came more from Denmark, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Though they stayed around the coast, so you'll have Frisians in the Netherlands and in Belgium. No, not Belgium, Germany. All against the sea, though. I guess you want this round then. Anitak, you have to clarify yourself. I'm not quite sure.
She's just trolling. It's fine.
Oh, right. Okay. And yes, the Frisian Empire reached all the way up to Norway at one time. Well, depending on which Frisian is a very good argument as well, Jimmy, because we now define a group based on shared characteristics. But back in the day, you already had different groups within that group, which is still true in most societies. I mean, let's be honest, one group of Franks isn't the other group of Franks, and they did infight. The same is true for example, Slavic groups or Roman groups or the whole
any groups, people like a good scuffle, let's be honest.
That's what it boils down to. That is true as well. So yeah, it's very difficult to give a clear definition. And this is the funny thing, because this is how nation states were started eventually. It's basically to say, you know what, we don't look at the difference that certain groups within our society have, but we look at the things we have in common with each other. Sorry. And this is why I'm not in favor of ethnonationalism, because it tries to move away from looking at the things we have in common with each other.
Can I make a bad joke now?
Yeah, sure.
According to Jimmy, all Franks look the same. So what he's saying is he cannot tell the difference between Frank Bruno and Frank Spencer.
Frank Spencer. Wasn't that the one from Some Mothers Do Have 'Em?
Yeah.
Right. Can't remember who Frank Bruno is, though.
Heavyweight boxer, knocked down, but not out, Muhammad Ali.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah, they're not the same. True as that. But no, that's...
I said it was a bad joke.
It was a bad joke indeed.
But he said he was old.
The thing is, when people talk, for example, about white people or black people, they talk as if they have a point, but they don't even know. Hell, I mean, I've asked many a times, define white. Which people are white? Which people are black?
Yeah, it's funny. Someone was saying, "Oh, Slavs aren't white." And I said, "Which Slavs? You do know they go all the way from like the Russians down to the Balkans."
Yep, the two. There are
they don't even look like themselves.
Yeah. It's kind of like the Scots, whose most favorite enemy.
Or the Irish. You've got the ginger Irish, and you've got the Iberian dark-haired, dark-skinned Irish.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. And if we look at the Netherlands, I mean, I love it when people talk about having a Dutch nationality and all that. Even in our passport, it's the Kingdom of the Netherlands. Plural. Yeah. So how can you have one Dutch identity if there are many a country?
Sorry, that's funny.
Well, it's true, though.
True. No, it's true, but it's funny. I like the way you said that.
So I'm not white. I'm peachy perfect.
Yeah, I like the term peach.
I like the fact that we call white people white and brown people people of color.
No, we don't. Idiots call them people of color.
Fair enough. They do. But the funny thing is, brown people have one color. White people change.
Yeah, that's an old joke, yeah.
It's not even a joke. That's the worst part of it. Peach nationalism now. Right.
Hey, we have a saying, everything is peachy, meaning good.
Well,
so
yeah.
I'm sure that if we went to say, oh, no, we're peach colored, everyone would go, oh, you're saying you're better than us because everything's peachy to you. That's your peachy privilege.
There you go.
Absolutely.
But
peachly privileged now.
Yeah. Peach nationalism now.
Though I do the only reason I like being called white is because if there's people of color and we are people of white, and POW is a great acronym.
People of white.
Yeah. So you've got people of color, then we're people of white, and therefore we are POW.
How you like me now?
No, POW, as in Batman. POW.
Yes. It's silly, but all right.
Of course it's silly. Jeez. I mean, the whole people of color. We have a population of 7 billion. Of whom, however, what is it? 700 million are white? less than barely half of the Chinese, barely half of the Indians.
Oh, I just, Jimmy Stifffinger, you're starting a fight right there, mate. Okay, so then the black people can be called people of color, and then the white people will be people of purity. Oh, that will go down well. It's kind of funny though, because if you look historically speaking, white people were prized, especially white women. That's why they were so often enslaved, but that's a different story.
Okay.
Well, it's true though.
Well,
It's
complicated.
Why is it complicated?
Because you say that, and maybe that is true to an extent, but then there are, like, the Roman Empire was like basically colorblind.
Yeah. Well, not really, but I understand why you would say that. No, different slaves, different jobs they need to fulfill, I guess.
No, it's skin color wasn't important in the way. Basically, it's an invention of the Americans, racism.
Mm-hmm.
Even if the term was itself an invention of bloody Trotsky.
Mm-hmm.
You're not listening again.
Yeah, I am listening. It was an invention.
I'm joking. Yeah, because to not be dark was showed that you didn't have to go out and toil in the sun.
Mm-hmm.
Right up until the point where they invented tourism, which was a British invention, because we have a shit climate and therefore need to go somewhere else to get a good suntan. Well, and then all of a sudden, the wealthy were the ones who could afford the suntan, and so being dark was a sign of affluence.
First, it was a sign of poverty, because if you were dark, that meant you had to work outside.
Uh-huh.
And then it became indeed a sign of wealth, because, hey, look at that, I can spend time sitting in the sun.
Especially when all the working people were either down a mine or in a factory, and therefore not getting browned in the sun.
Yeah. Breeding is not feeding. Well, there is that too.
That's how Swedish women became so pretty. The Vikings didn't capture the ugly ones.
Yeah.
Oh, dear.
That no comment. But yeah, no, it's true. The Vikings did capture people.
Yeah, well, everyone did.
Not just women. Actually, the Vikings were more likely to capture children than adults, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, no, but everyone did. This is the whole American lie. As I keep saying, they're an exception. Yeah. It's the American lie that slavery was something white people did to dark people, as opposed to something everyone did to everybody else, usually the next door neighbors, and therefore ethnically identical to themselves.
Oh yeah, no, I did notice that, Jimmy Stifffinger, because apparently Blanc isn't PC, and Wit somehow is. I don't know.
Oh, Blanc is sort of like French / Spanish / Romano, and Wit is presumably Germanic.
Wit is like the color white, and Blanc is indeed Blanc.
Yeah, which is the Romano version of white. It's a bit like saying, oh, Negro's racist. No, it's just Spanish.
Yeah. The rule of sword. I'm not quite sure what you mean with that one, Mr. 88. But in all fairness, considering the time, we've passed the 2-hour marker.
And then some.
And then some.
It shows it was a good stream.
True that.
Once we got off the annoying ethno-nationalistic stuff.
Well, it is annoying, but that's kind of why we need to address it.
Well,
not that we can do much, but yeah.
Well, it's not just that, but my concern is what we think we know about it is heavily influenced by people whom we know have a dishonest agenda.
Yeah.
This is my concern. As I said, Tommy Robinson is called a racist and far right when he is neither.
He is clearly not. That is true. No, that's true. And it's mostly left-wing people calling other people racist. And
it's a constant labeling of people as. I mean, what was it? Tim Pool, the conservative.
Yeah, for fuck's sake. But the problem is, and this is the problem of self-fulfilling prophecies. If I tell you often enough that you are something, at a certain point in time, you're no longer going to start arguing that you're not, and you're going to say, if you're going to call me that, I'm going to behave like that.
No, again, I have a trouble. I do struggle with that narrative because it implies people are weak-willed and have no sense of self, and some people aren't weak-willed and do have a sense of self.
Most people do have a sense of self, but every person has a breaking point.
Most people have a breaking point.
Every person has a breaking point.
Most people.
No, John, I'm sorry.
Well, you can be, but I fundamentally disagree with generalizations in principle.
Well, in this case, it fits.
Yeah, I don't care whether you think it fits. The point is.
Anywho, before we start all over again, it is time for us to call it quits.
It is.
I
will
hope.
Just say this. It is up to every individual to define themselves. The minute we insist on defining them, and that's what a rule like that does, they can't. You're not allowing them to define themselves.
True that.
And it's important to say, no, if the evidence is that everyone I've ever met follows this rule, you've still met a tiny proportion of people in the world.
No, I totally agree with that.
And that's why we must always modify and not make absolute rules which claim to know what people are against their ability to define themselves.
Mm-hmm. But therein also lies the danger, the trouble. Because it's difficult to keep standing. It's difficult to withstand the storm.
Of course. And I'm not saying many. I'm just will not accept none. Because there are people of principle. They might be few. They might not have much motivation. But there are exceptions to any.
But yeah, in the German they say, erst das Fressen, dann das Moral. And I think that's very apt. First, we need food on the table, then we can talk about the morals of things.
Yeah, but the point is there will be somebody who would starve rather than give in.
Maybe.
No, there will be somebody. You know, the records are there that there are these unusual individuals, and they are unusual. But to say nobody.
No, and as long as we can still stand up and speak out against the things we truly do not identify with, we should. We really should. But, well, maybe I picture a gloom picture. Maybe I paint a gloom picture. That's how it should be said. Anyway, it was a very interesting talk. And we addressed a lot of the topics, though not as much on the judicial part.
Well, that's because it wasn't about the judicial part. From my perspective, it was about authoritarianism.
Fair enough. Fair enough. We have a few of them. Night all, it was a great namaste. Night, Mr. 88. We have a few of them here. I hope Blair is not jailed. Australia will get scary fast if he loses, like Tommy. I'm not quite sure what you mean with that one, Anitak.
She's talking about a political trial over there. She discussed it in a stream, which I wasn't up on, so I didn't really follow. But
I'm curious. What Anitak, do you want to talk about it? Because we are talking about what happens in the UK, because we know, well, John being in the UK.
But no, we did. If you remember, we did talk about inviting her onto a stream.
Yeah, I know.
And this is what, because Real Raven was raising the issue of what she said in her last stream, if you remember.
Yeah.
This was part of it. And so the best way to find out is to have her come on and explain it, or point us to a video of her own.
Anitak, are you willing to come next Wednesday and join us and talk about it? Well, that explains the why. That's the downside, though. Yeah, okay. Normally we go live. We start going live 2.5 hours, 2 hours, 45 minutes before now. Do you think you can make that?
Yeah, we don't mind humming. We're very good at dead air and things. If you haven't noticed.
You want me humming on your stream? Yeah, that's not a problem. But you know what this story is about. Okay, so then next Wednesday we will talk about the not Tony Blair story. I know.
No, Blair, I believe it's his first name.
Blair's first name. I didn't know people could.
Oh, people can be called anything.
Yeah, that's true. I know there's someone called, what is it, 4A's or something?
Oh, that one.
Yeah.
No, it was, they have this name in America, which is ABCDE, but it's not pronounced ABCDE.
No, it's obesity.
Yeah, that's the one.
And then their sister is called obesity, but that's a different.
No, I think it's a girl's name.
What? ABCD or obesity?
No, ABC. Obesity. Because there was already the joke that obesity sounds like obesity. He is a hot Tommy. You mean you don't fancy Tommy Robinson? Sorry.
Anyway, so people, next week, Friday, Anitak will come and tell us about.
Hey, you said Wednesday.
Sorry?
You said Wednesday. Now you're talking about Friday. You'll confuse everybody.
I'm sorry. I did mean Wednesday. Wednesday's live stream of Modwayne's House of Fun, that's no longer called Modwayne's House of Fun, will be about Blair Cottrell, where Anitak will tell us about the stupidity of totalitarianism, but this
Australia.
time from an Australian perspective.
Yay, go the Anglosphere.
I like tradey types.
Well, Tommy's a working bud. He's a tradey type.
Oh, right. Yeah, he's a working class chum.
You don't get much more working class, to be honest.
That's true.
And he can handle himself.
It's kind of funny because in the Netherlands, we do have stuff like that, but not as much as they have it in England. I mean, obviously there are working class and working class, but the way it's done in England is he has a dad bod. Yeah, so do I.
No, not compared to you and I. He does not have a dad bod.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, fair enough.
Oh, I see. So is Blair Cottrell young? So
Younger.
you like young and hot, not lived in.
Right. I feel age discriminated against.
Well, no, because she's saying he has a dad bod, right? Well, Tommy Robinson's a father, and he's not young, and so I was wondering if Anna Tack fancied that she's saying he's hot, so really means he's young.
Oh, I'm sorry, yawning. But you know what, guys? Because we're stretching the
Bound of reality. There will be a wormhole forming in this facility soon.
Next Wednesday, Anya Talk will tell us about Blair Cottrell and totalitarianism in Australia.
Why don't you give Anna Tack your Discord? I know you posted it earlier, but you probably didn't see it.
I'll see if it's still here.
And then that way you can contact Modwayne and Attack if that's okay.
I can still do that. Where am I? There I am. Copy. Paste. That is my Discord server. It is very inactive. But if you sign up to it, I may be able to reach you there.
And vice versa.
And vice versa. And vice versa. And other people are more than welcome to join it as well. Because I'm very open-minded.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He is. He must do. He puts up with me.
Anyway, this is again where we're going to call it quits. I will set up the stream for coming Wednesday, where On-Air Talk will come and teach us about the beauty of
Australian justice.
And I will put a link to On-Air Talk's channel for those of you who haven't seen any of her work yet. And John, you have any famous last words for tonight?
Oh Lord, no, I've spoken way too much.
Well, in that case, people, we'd like to thank you all for coming and wish you all a good night.